Hey guys, brand new podcast. And guess who's here? My beautiful wife, Leanne Kreischer, who if you'd like to see her podcast, Wife of the Party, you can find it at wifeotp.com. Perfect.
I didn't know I was going to be on here tonight.
No, it seemed in an odd angle because the sun's over there. So I spun it and then I had all this open space.
Over there. Wait, move your head. Is right. Where is it? Right there. Is that the sun? Right
it's so funny. I have a joke about Leanne thinking she's the funny one at home.
I am. It's
that's right.
It's fact.
Oh, is it fact? Uh-huh. So I want to thank everyone who came out on the Hot Summer Nights tour. It was a success, in my opinion, mostly because we had a great time and we all stayed fairly safe. I'm sure a ton of you are wondering, Bert, did you get COVID? No, we tested negative for COVID. We had the whole 8 people on the tour bus test, and everyone tested negative. Now, that is not to say that that this virus is not real. We did 16 cities, we did 20 shows, and we were very specific about how we toured. And I just want to be clear about this. We did zero contact in every club, every drive-in we did. When I say zero contact, we touched no one. We literally talked to no one. And our group was very insulated. We walked in through a back entrance, brought up by a security guard. We went into the green room. We didn't interact with anyone. And then we went onto the stage. The only contact that we would have come into was on our walk to the stage without a mask. But we wore masks everywhere. And I don't want you to think that because you saw me traveling around the world that it's difficult to get this virus. As we know, a lot of my friends have picked it up and from doing shows. And people will still do shows. And they should do shows. These clubs are hurting and they need comics to come in and fill them. So don't go out and shame a comic. Comics can be safe. They can be zero contact, mask, lots of sanitizer, and be very insulated. But it was a great time. We had an absolutely great time. I want to thank everyone who came out. The drive-in movie theater shows, I will be doing more of those. I will not probably be doing any more club shows just because I don't have as much control of those as I'd like. But those drive-in movie theater shows, I had complete control over. And everyone could be as safe as they wanted. You cannot tell an American what the fuck to do. You can't tell them to wear a mask, and you can't tell them to stay away from you. Trust me. We had dudes running to the stage, and literally, I felt bad for the security guard. Had to stop them from running to the stage because I didn't want any contact. But you can't tell Americans what to do. They're fucking Americans. So we had a great time. We really had a great time. I will be doing more drive-in movie theater shows. They were so much fun. For those of you who weren't there, I just want to paint the picture. It was so beautiful and such a beautiful life experience. Doors would open. These venues were very nostalgic, very cool. Charlotte was one of the coolest places I've been ever. That drive-in movie theater was absolutely gorgeous, and I will be doing shows there again. Tulsa was like a dream. It was the drive-in movie theater from The Outsiders. The Outsiders was shot at that Tulsa drive-in. Indy, we did 2 shows. Fort Collins, we did 2 shows. Fort Collins was hilarious. And the guy that we kept up all night who kept telling me to go fuck myself from his house, I'm sorry, sir. I'm genuinely sorry. But they were amazing. Doors would open 7, show wouldn't start until 9. So people would get there, they'd start tailgating. They'd set up couches, they'd set up chairs, they'd start grilling, they'd start smoking meats, they'd start drinking booze. They would set up jacuzzis in the back of their trucks. It was so fucking cool that I will be doing more of those. I think that is, for me, in my opinion, the easily the safest, easiest way to tour for me right now is to do those drive-ins. And I know that my act kind of lends itself well to the drive-ins. And by the way, I've been talking about other big ways to tour that are a little out of the box, that are socially distant, socially safe. My wife is losing her mind right now.
Why?
You're just bored. I mean, like, if you're going to be bored, don't do it visually. Why? You're just like this. You're you're in the background like this. Jesus Christ, I've already turned it off.
And I go.
I've been talking about these drive-ins nonstop to her specifically.
What? Were you talking?
So we had a great time. And all I'll say is we wore masks 100% of the time when we were out. I mean, what? Am I beating a dead horse right now?
I feel like you're watching me now to see what I'm doing. Just talk to them. I don't know why you wanted me here.
Because.
So I can go like this. He's talking.
Wow. And to think I cared about her life.
What?
You are such a... If you'd like more of these Leanne ticks...
Let me ask you this.
Go.
How many times did I start talking to you today, and in the middle of it I go, you're not even listening. And you went, you're right, I'm not even listening.
I'm detoxing.
How about this?
I'm detoxing.
It happened twice in one sentence.
I'm detoxing. I'm detoxing.
You, started the sentence over again, and had to stop again. So for me to be a little bored from hearing you talk about the same thing you've talked about for the past 72 hours ad nauseum, I'm so sorry. My bad.
I have a lot of issues. I have a lot obsessive compulsiveness.
Just one or two.
Anxiety. I'm detoxing from this tour. It was so much fucking fun. I partied really hard, and I'm back on the wagon. For all of those of you that are wondering, I'm down on Kool-Aid. I had one jug today. This one right here. I had this of Kool-Aid. That's it.
That's huge.
That's not... Halston, can you shut the fuck up? I did not need you to chime in. I have one jug of Kool-Aid. There's still a little bit left.
He usually has 3.
I usually have 3 of them. I've been drinking a lot of water. Whiskey cock dog.
Well, the interesting thing to me was that you don't add extra sugar to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, hold on. Let's talk fucking Kool-Aid for a second, okay?
Oh, God. Can I just go on my phone?
No. Leanne, how many calories are in those Kool-Aid packets?
No idea. 5?
Yeah, you do know it's 5. It's 5, and I put 1 in, and I fill it up with water, so there's a lot of water dilated in Kool-Aid, fucking... Diluted in Kool-Aid. I said dilated.
I think a lot of people were just thinking that you were drinking candy all day.
Yeah, guys.
No, it's the sugar-free. It's the chemical stuff that gives you, like, dementia and that kind of stuff. It's the Alzheimer's stuff.
You know how many notes I get from adults on a daily basis telling me how to live my life? Did you know that Segura says he gets up and within 3 minutes he brushes his teeth?
Yeah.
Hold on. Now, stop. You're doing this because you're on camera, and that's why he did it.
I brush my teeth usually most days. I go pee, I weigh myself, and I brush my teeth.
Do you know what Angela Johnson said? I didn't want to comment on it, but I love Angela. I don't think I've had her on the podcast yet. Angela said that she gets up, and one of the first things she does is wash her hands.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't want to call her out. She put it in my comments, and she supported me. She goes, yeah, first thing I do is I get up, I wash my hands, I eat breakfast, I have my coffee, and then I brush my teeth. And I went, yeah, that's what I do sometimes, most of the times. But I definitely don't wash I wash my hands a lot lately, but not when I get up.
What have you done at night that's dirty?
Me?
No, the person that needs to wash their hands.
I don't know. It's a lot of people wash their face. I've never washed my face. I'm not a face washer at all.
When was the last time you washed yourself? So we're driving to the new house today, Halston, because I have these massive tomato plants that are getting sunburned, so I needed to cover them. So we're on our way, and Bert goes, so angry at Izzy. And I go, why are you angry at Izzy? Because she knocked me down, and I'm so itchy from it. That was 2 days ago. That happened 2 full days ago. And I was like, hold on. Perhaps you're angry at yourself because you haven't bathed since she knocked you down 2 days ago.
Well, you're going to be shocked when I tell you the last time I showered.
Yeah, you just keep getting in the pool and then going, gee, I don't understand why I'm so itchy.
Last time I showered.
Because you're covered in chlorine. It's not
Oh, my
clean.
God. Do you know the last time I showered was in...
June 19th when you left here last time?
No, it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's so gross.
That's like...
And you think I want to get busy with that?
That's 8 days ago.
Why would you think that?
No, that's not. That's more than 8 days
and
ago.
I'd be like, give me some
That's
of
like
that.
10 days ago.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
Soap to skin.
I've been on a lot of lakes, though, so I think that
so
counts.
Mad at Izzy because I'm so
First of all, she knocked me down. She jumped up right when I got landed. I got into the
She was super
park.
excited to see
She jumped up and punched me in the balls so hard it knocked the wind out of me, and I groaned like, "Arr!" And Leanne goes, "Oh, Izzy, she's so excited to see you." And I went,
"Where else was I supposed to go?"
You-
Oh my God! Did she?
Babe,
rupture
are you
one?
okay? Are you okay? You're groaning, and you don't have any wind in you, and you're writhing on the floor. You
Obviously,
just should have been.
you're okay. I mean, I know it's painful, but you're not injured. You've just.
I was injured. That's exactly what it was. I was
No.
injured.
You're in pain. That's different than being injured.
Whoa.
An injury needs treatment. There was no treatment necessary. You just needed time for it to settle down. So you were in pain, but you were not injured.
New Two Bears, One Cave is out. We talk about brushing your teeth. New Bill Bert is out. We bust Brian and Brendan's balls a little bit, me and Bill. Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all, but we do talk about it a tad bit. So, but it's not bad. And if you think it's bad, don't start drama. Those guys are sick. Let them get better, and then we can bust their balls really fucking hard.
What's that right there?
I don't know. It's on my computer. It's just dirt. So
it's maybe COVID splatter.
Today's episode's a really good one. Today's episode's with Jack Maxwell. Jack is someone who was on Travel Channel. He had a show called Booze Traveler, which I absolutely loved. It was one of the best shows on the network. But I didn't know him very well. I didn't get to hang out with him ever. We never really had any cross interactions, but that's just how that network worked, is that everyone did their own shows, and then maybe once a year we'd run into each other. But Jack is someone I didn't know much about. And boy, this is a good interview. Isn't it good, Austin? I listen hard as fuck. He talks about growing up in Southie as an underprivileged kid. He talks about his dad getting on drugs. He talks about getting cancer. He talks about Booze Traveler. And he talks about his new show. What's his new show, Halston?
The High Road with Jack Maxwell.
He talks about his new show, The High Road with Jack Maxwell. And it's on YouTube. You can see it. There will be a link in the YouTube video right under here to go check it out. It is produced by my buddy, who was a huge driving force at Travel Channel for me, Ross. Ross and Dale were like huge two guys that just meant a lot to me at Travel Channel, and as well as Andy. There were a lot of guys, and we talk about all of them. I'm not saying last names because I don't want to blow up anyone's fucking last names. What are you doing? What do you say it? Just fucking say it. Just fucking say it.
I wanted to go and make the record stop skipping. Here you go, Dodge. Ross. I wanted to go.
You just turn the fucking mic.
The record is skipping. Come on, baby.
So,
get out. Come on.
We talk about a lot of people, and we say a lot of last names. We didn't bleep a lot of last names. If we talk good about them, we did bleep a couple that we maybe didn't talk perfectly about. And I just didn't want to sound like I was talking shit about anybody, but it does sound like I'm talking shit. And if they aren't the person that I'm talking about, they'll know who I'm talking about.
You are talking yourself into a corner. Just move on.
You're going to love this episode.
Yeah.
No more tour dates I had to speak of. We're at home for a while, back on the treadmill, running, not drinking, being healthy, and making love.
Not without a bath, buddy. Sorry.
Today's podcast, ladies and gentlemen, from Booze Traveler, from Travel Channel, with his new show, Halston. What the fuck's the name of the new show again?
The High Road.
The High Road with Jack Maxwell, found on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, my buddy, Jack Maxwell. I did radio this morning, Halston, from 6 a.m. until 10:30. And I went back into my bedroom and I went to sleep so hard that I woke up thinking I was going to be dead. I was like, oh my God. And then I just got off a conference call. What's up, Jack?
Hey, what's up, Bert?
How you doing? Let me change this guy. There we go. Not much. Halston, you good? You recording?
All I heard was you say you woke up at 10:30. What was that about?
Oh, I did. I'm doing this tour through drive-in movie theaters in a couple weeks. And so I was doing press to promote the tour. So I got up at 6 a.m. to do those radio phoners until 10:30. And then I went back to sleep so fucking hard. Like it was so great. I literally woke up like so out of it. But I drank last night, and I haven't been drinking at all. And I drank last night. I got on the treadmill, ran 10 miles, and drank a bottle of wine. And I fucking felt it this morning bad.
Wait a minute. You ran 10 miles?
Yeah, ran 10 miles.
Doesn't that hurt your knees at this point in our life? We're not kids anymore.
No, it doesn't. I don't know why.
Wow, that would kill me.
I wasn't a big runner growing up though. So like, I walked everywhere. I felt like I wasn't a big runner. What are you doing for exercise these days?
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw you at the last time we saw each other was Fryman Canyon.
Yeah.
And that's about the extent of it. I'm in Arizona now because I just got done with my chemo treatments. So what I do is
you had to go back into chemo?
Yeah, well, had to was I guess not pushed to, but advised to because of the cancer I had, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's tough when it comes back. That's when it does a lot of damage. So they try to keep it at bay like you would with any cancer. But for some reason, this one really does a lot of damage. So they said, you're done with the main chemo. We suggest, wink, wink, you do about 1.5 to 2 years of maintenance chemo because it'll be worth it. Trust us. But we can't force you, but you should do it. But we don't want to say that, but maybe you should. So I said, I'm not Sherlock Holmes or anything, but I think you're dropping some pretty big hints here. So
how did you find out you had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yeah, that was just pure luck. I went in for a scan. My stepbrother is a physician's assistant. And he said, listen, old man, you don't really go into the hospital or doctors for anything. You should probably start getting regular checkups. And of course, as you know, because you went through it with me, being on Travel Channel, they invest this money in you and they say, okay, now you got to go through all these tests and get all these shots just in case. So, of course, I went through that. But the usual thing, like having the colonoscopy and prostate and all of that, not my favorite activities, but I want to be smart as well. So anyway, I said, sure. So I went in and they scanned my chest. And at the very bottom of frame, so to speak, they said, there's something there that shouldn't be. Can you come back in? No, I'm busy. You say that, I'm going to run. What do you mean there's something that shouldn't be? Did I swallow a quarter when I was a kid? It's still there? What do you mean there's something there that shouldn't be? So I went back in. They did a full cavity scan, and it was lit up. And they said, yeah, that's probably some kind of cancer. We're thinking some kind of lymphoma because your what are they called? Your lymph nodes, of course. Your lymph nodes are a little jacked. We should probably do a biopsy. And I said, okay, what kind of cancer? They said lymphoma, probably either Hodgkin's lymphoma or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but we need a biopsy to confirm that. I said, cool. Which one should I be rooting for? Can you give me some hope? I'll take the good one. Anything? And they said, well, that all depends. Some people would rather have Hodgkin's. Some people would rather have non-Hodgkin's.
Why?
Yeah, that's what I said. They said it depends on what it is that bothers you and how your body adjusts. For instance, my friend's niece, she was like 20 when she got Hodgkin's, and she sailed through it. Yet I had other people say, oh, you better root for non because Hodgkin's is the bad one. So he didn't, I don't know, he didn't want to make me nervous or something. Anyway, I got non-Hodgkin's. So that's the one I was stuck with. And then I waited for a while. I was still doing Booze Traveler. But I told the network and I told the production company, and they said, you can keep doing the show. Sure, go on out as long as you feel like you can. So I did the show for 2 more years with it. Didn't tell too many people.
But you just had it and you didn't do anything about it?
Well, yeah, I know that might sound crazy, but I said to my oncologist, listen, for the first time in a long time, I got a gig. I'd like to keep it, right? So what do you think I should do? Because if you say come off the road and go right into chemo or radiation or whatever you're going to do, I'm going to listen to you because I'd like to live first and foremost, And he said, well, do you have any symptoms? And I said, what are the symptoms? He said, you're tired a lot. Your eyes are red. Your limbs swell up. Your stomach doesn't feel so great. I said, you're describing the symptoms from Booze Traveler. That's what I'm talking.
You watch my show?
Yeah. Really? You must, no kidding. What's your favorite episode? So I said, yeah, because I even talk about it on camera. That's what happens when you travel. I want to show the reality of it as well. Not just it's all, rainbows and cocktails. So whatever that's supposed to mean. So he said, well, you seem to be doing okay. And if you're not exhibiting horrible symptoms like night sweats, you wake up soaked. And I hadn't, although I had an idea there was something wrong with me, Bert, when I was in New Zealand and I threw up blood. And I said, that can't be good. And we were going to go to Hobbiton that day. Now, I'm not the biggest Hobbit fan. I mean, I think they're great, Lord of the Rings and all that. But the crew was so looking forward to it, and I couldn't miss that day. So I got up and I went. And but I had an inclination. And then, of course, then the diagnosis and all that. So back to what was at the time present day. The oncologist said, all right, we'll do scans every month or so just to make sure you're okay when you come off the road. And they accept a lymph node at about 1 centimeter. Mine was 9.5. So I said, are you sure? Like, I'm not good at math, but that sounds a lot bigger than it should be, really, you know? Is that geometry, algebra? But I don't know what it is. Multiplication says that's not good. And he said, well, we'll wait and see. We'll take the benign neglect approach, which means keep an eye on it, and then we'll see what happens. But they were concerned because I could be in Mongolia, you know, in the Gobi Desert, no hospital, I'm a dead man. It's that simple. That's how serious, you know, cancer is. So the first scan got a little better. Second scan got a little better. And I thought, I'm magic. I got the power of my mind. I can heal myself. Get me a tent, and I'm going to go do revival shows around the country. And he said, listen, don't get carried away. That happens. Sometimes your mind can heal itself if you take the right approach. And doing that show was such a blessing for me because I got to see so many different points of view, not only cultural, but religious and spiritual, and how people approach adversarial conditions all the time. And I really paid attention to it. So I incorporated whatever I could of what I learned going around the world. And I did try to heal myself. But the next scan said, it's getting worse. And then it went from under 9.5 to 10.5. And the doctor said, I think it's time to come in and do something. So I had a break coming up in like 3 weeks, a natural hiatus. And I went into chemo only, not radiation. I did that very intensely for 4 months. And then I just finished with the other one, the maintenance chemo. While I was in chemo, the network said, hey, how you feeling? Your show's canceled.
Oh, fuck.
But that's the way it goes. You know, I don't take it personal. I don't think it had to do with that because, as you know, they went a little toward the paranormal, and I deal in a different kind of spirits, I guess. I don't know. And that was it. You know, a couple of shows got pulled, but it's more important that I focus on my health anyway. So that's all right.
Yeah. So wait, what's the difference between chemo and radiation?
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, for me, chemo, it was 6 hours of bags of liquids going through my IV. Radiation is more where they zap it. And I know that's a real technical term, but I think it means some kind of ray gun. I don't know what they do with radiation. It's the topical where they, you know, it's a machine and they shoot, I don't know, some kind of light, some kind of whatever, radiation. They radiate it. But chemo is either pill form or through an IV bag, from what I understand.
Do you lose your hair with chemo?
I was supposed to. You know, they said, listen, you're going to lose your hair and it's going to come back white because you're old. Thank you, Newt Rockney. Wow, power of positive thinking. I appreciate that. And they said, you're going to get sick too. Oh, this is great. How long is this? Can we give this person the light? They're just full of horrible stuff for me. And so I said, how sick? They said, pretty sick. Like in the middle of the night, we grew up in the era that rock and rollers was throwing and puking on themselves and choking on the vomit, right?
Yeah.
Was that Jimi Hendrix, maybe Bon Scott, maybe Janis Joplin? They're not who knows? Keith Moon. These are all rumors. But anyway, that's all I pictured, that I was going to go to sleep one night and puke, get sick, and not know it. And then that's the end of me. So I bought an adjustable bed. But none of that happened, Bert.
Really?
I didn't lose my hair at all, and I didn't get sick at all. I had a couple of symptoms. One of them, the tips of my fingers got numb, and I couldn't pick up keys and coins without really concentrating. And then I couldn't sleep. Blinding white flashes went off in my eyes when I closed them, whenever that was. But at night, of course, you have to pretend you're sleeping to fall asleep. So I had to close my eyes, right? And I couldn't sleep. And so I started taking CBD, and that's what led me to the high road.
Now, is that the new show you're doing with Ross?
Yeah, he's the production company. A company came to me and said, listen, we like your story. It's inspiring. We know what you went through. We saw what you did for booze. Can you do that for us? I said, I didn't do anything for booze. Booze is fine on its own. It's been around a long time. Actually, booze did more for me than I did for it. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But this company was getting off into the cannabis space and the wellness space in relation to that. I said, oh, funny, because I used CBD. I wasn't a big cannabis guy at the time because my father was a drug addict. So I promised my mother I wouldn't do drugs, not knowing the difference when I was a little kid between marijuana and heroin. I thought it was all the same. What do I know, right?
Yeah.
And so I was never really big into cannabis, but then I started using CBD and then full spectrum, which had some THC as well. And it really helped. And I said, oh, there's something to this. So I went off on the road and talked to a lot of people who maybe were in the same situation. They didn't know where to turn and they didn't think that was helpful. But the medicinal side of it is just really making it quite popular these days, isn't it?
Yeah. So I got to ask, what you tell me about your dad?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really know him all that well. Back in the 60s when I was born.
Start at the beginning. You're from Boston, right?
I am, yeah. I'm from Boston. I was born in a place called South Boston, which has been a little bit overdone in the movies, right?
Wait. Slow it down. Tell me about, you realize that everyone just assumes Boston is South Boston.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to it. But it's funny too, because if you talk to kids in the neighborhood, I don't mean little kids, it's just a phrase. You're a kid, right? Yeah, Bert's a good kid. If you go back there now and talk to the guys in the neighborhood, they really get upset because everybody's claiming they're from South Boston. It's like when Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points, more people claimed they were there than could fit in the stadium, and it wasn't even sold out, right? Yeah. Same with Southie. For some reason, I guess between Good Will Hunting and then Southie, like Donnie Wahlberg, and I guess The Departed, that was South Boston, and a bunch of other movies, I guess. People say they're from Southie when they're from on the burb somewhere, right? But I grew up in the projects of South Boston, so it was very much like Good Will Hunting in that way. Except Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are a lot cooler than I'll ever be. But my mother was 21. She got pregnant. She got married because that's what you did back in the day. He didn't want to be a father nor a husband, so they split up in the first year. And I'd see him. Boy, it seems like once every 2 years, maybe. It was so, and I went years without seeing him. I always wondered why. Now, because as a little kid, everyone had fathers, or their fathers would come visit them, even in the projects. And I started figuring out as I got older, he was a drug addict, and he would shoot in his arms like Dilaudid, which they give you right before you're going to die from cancer. I mean, that's some strong stuff. And I only realized this after I moved away. And then I came back to Boston on my own when I was 18 after high school. I graduated half a year early because I had this strange pull. Even though he was not the greatest guy, I needed to know my father so I could know myself. Or at least that's what I thought at 18. Yeah. So I go to live with him, and he lives in a different set of projects. So I come from great stock, let me tell you. And I promised my mother I'd go to college, so I'm taking college courses, and I'm living with him. And he lives with his mother, my grandmother, which is great. They're real close family that way. But I started seeing he wasn't going to work, and then I found a hypodermic needle on the floor. And again, going up the projects, I saw a lot of that, right? So I knew right away that's what it was. And I talked to my grandmother about it, and unfortunately, she enabled him, really, and said, well, it's his medicine. He needs it. I don't know if anybody needs that kind of thing. What's he taking? And she wouldn't say. So one day, and I don't want to get too dark here, but one day after we had a couple of confrontations about it, I found an aluminum foil ball behind the radiator. Every room has its own radiator, and there's about this much space. And I found this ball of aluminum foil and 2 Dilaudids, little orange pills. And again, I'm an 18-year-old kid, so I'm savvy, but I'm still not street smart like you would be if you lived 30, 40 years, right? And I bring it to him. And I said, what are you doing? You said you're not doing it anymore, which he probably said 100 times. And he said, give me that. I need it. And I saw this immediate transformation from this guy I loved and was funny and fun and jovial. I saw this need, this desperation for this thing, as if he would die if he didn't have it. Like if you choke someone off from oxygen. This is it. And then his eyes got red and big. Give it to me. I need it. And then I got upset, of course, and I said, okay, I'll give it to you. But you got to tell me these things here are more important to you than I am. And he couldn't say it. And he just looked down because he was ashamed. And he just shook his head like that. And I gave it to him. And he went to prison soon after that because he got caught for forging prescriptions. And then that was basically it, really. But it was so bad because I loved him so much and I wanted to get to know him. I drove him to rehab. And I'm in the lobby reading Sports Illustrated. I remember Larry Bird was on the cover, so I was going to read that front to back, being a Celtic fan, right? And about 45 minutes in, I'm thinking, why is this taking so long? It was supposed to be the initial meeting before you go into rehab.
Yeah.
So I asked the receptionist, and she pointed me to the back, and I went in the back, and the guy said, no, he left. He left soon, right after he went out the back door. My own father left me there. I had to take a train and a bus home. And he was there because I said, what happened? He said, well, they were saying this and that, and I had to go and I had to leave. No, he was going to go score. And when you're pulled to do it, you do it. And that's the scourge of drug addiction. I hated him for it at the time, but I forgive him now because I understand you really don't have much control once you're in it.
And so you never really, were you like a good kid growing up?
Had to be. Living in the projects, I didn't have an older brother, right? I had a younger sister. So I had to stick up for her and watch out. And there were a lot of wise guys in the project. There's a lot of good people too. Don't get me wrong. But it's a violent place. They would set cars on fire. The school right across next to my building, they burnt it down. And there's a huge church. It's so strange, right? This oxymoron right in the middle of this thing. And I was an altar boy there. So I try to be a good kid because my grandmother raised me the right way with my mother and said, listen, you have to be a good kid. You have to take care of your mom and your sister. So I always resisted the urge to do what the older kids were doing in the projects. And finally, my mother said, I don't know how long I've been able to do this with this kid. So we moved out when I was just about 13 and moved to Phoenix.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And then I went back, like I said, when I was 18, because I missed my friends like a knucklehead. I wanted to get back to the city. And that taught me a lesson, didn't it?
So what is that like? This is going to sound like such a white privilegey question, but like, what's that like? I've never heard of, this is going to come out so horrible, especially everything going on in the world today. I've never really heard of white projects. Like I've only heard of like Marcy projects, like all the stuff from rappers,
Sure.
What's white projects like? Like
Cabrini Green in Chicago. Sure. All of it.
Yeah.
I guess you don't hear about it because there's not a lot of white rappers. I don't know.
I guess what it is that mostly like poor white people live in trailer parks. And so you hear about like the M&Ms and and you know that style, but like I watched a video. There's a 45-minute video about accents, and it's a guy with a Boston accent, and he just is walking around. He's walking around Southie, and he's just introducing everyone to everyone. It's the most. I can't believe it's literally I can't believe I watched the entire thing. But when you say project, I'm trying to wrap my head around the picture. Is it like what I think of in the movies when I see like the black projects where it's like? Or is it a different style? Are they tall buildings? Are they?
Yeah, different style. I know projects from those movies and Good Times. Remember, they lived in the projects and they were tall buildings. These are just 3-story buildings. They were basically built after World War II for the boomers coming back from the war, and they needed housing. And so it's basically low-income housing. And because my mother was 21, wonderful woman, but she just got with the wrong guy. And he didn't take any responsibility at the time, even though they got married. So we were forced to live in the projects. And she worked 2 or 3 jobs because she didn't have an education, basically just high school. Smart woman, and she did really well for herself later on. But at the time, and then my sister came along later. So It was tough in the sense that she didn't have a lot of options, is what I mean. I didn't know any better because I was born into it. But it's funny you say all white, because I remember on occasion they would try to place a black family into the projects, and well, they weren't having it, and they would break their windows and beat their door down, and all these stories. Of course, I wasn't there because I was little, but you'd hear of it, and I was so heartbroken that they would treat people like that because they were poor, I thought, and they needed a place to live. And just because they had different skin color, what's the deal with that? I didn't realize there were whole sets of other projects in Roxbury where mostly black people lived, if you want to, qualify it as far as neighborhoods. But the D Street projects, there were 3 sets of projects in Southie, and we were known as the bad ones. The kids from the other 2 projects used to make fun of us being from these projects. Imagine that. It's not like they were Bel Air or anything, It was still projects. There was Old Colony, Old Harbor, and D Street, and they used to call us D Street dirt balls. And I said, I don't understand. Your projects are the same as ours. They weren't any nicer, but basically they're red brick 3-story buildings, and they're connected, and there's on a lot of acres, so it's big. And if you wander in there, it's hard to maybe sometimes find your way out. And you wouldn't just wander in there. If you go in there, it's for a reason, and you shouldn't go there unless you know somebody.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it was.
Did you ever feel like scared walking home from school? Was there like bullies? Like I'm fascinated.
Yeah, there were a lot of bullies because they were unhappy, and that's where bullying comes from. It's pain, it's anger, insecurity, and so because people were poor, they took it out on others. Now, I was a kid, so I was mostly spared from the horrible violence. There's kids would try to beat me up. They were older than me, and so you learn how to fight. My mother put me in martial arts and all that other stuff, but I was a little kid. It's not like I got great at it, but just enough for the neighborhood to know that I was taking classes. They're like, well, maybe we'll go the path of least resistance, just in case he learned something in class. But, it still happened. Then, of course, when I went to other neighborhoods, visiting my cousins and things like that, they would make fun of me because I'm the project kid and this and that, and hide your silverware. Actually, somebody actually said that. Someone's father said to the mother, his wife, hide the silverware. The project kid is here. I'll never forget that. I'm like, oh, yeah? What silverware? I thought it was candles. I thought it was like silver candle holders. I don't know why, because that's the only thing I could think that could be made of silver, right?
Yeah.
It's cutlery, and why would I want steel forks and knives, you dummy? But as far as the violence of it, yeah, it was odd because when you grow up into it, you kind of get used to it. But yeah, there were fights, and I remember on Christmas Eve day, my mother and I came home. I don't know where my sister was, and somebody had kicked in our thick metal door and stole all our presents like the Grinch. And I'm like, wait a minute. How do you do that? And it's in our building, right? Someone had to live there, or we wouldn't just, robbers don't case the place. They live there. No one's going to take that chance. First of all, because risk versus reward. What are you going to get from someone in the projects anyway, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, someone did that. One of our neighbors, and I felt so violated. I want to go around punching and beating up people. But for the most part, I have to say, with all that being said, people started looking out for my mother because she was by herself and she had 2 kids. So there are allies, and then there are people who are just going to be mad at the world no matter what.
How did you turn out so good?
Well, I don't know that I did. It's all an act, really. No, I promised my mother that I would be a good kid. So this is where the drugs issue comes from. She said, please don't be like your father. So I said, okay, what's my father like? He does drugs. I won't do them. He says he's going to show up and he doesn't. I'll be good with my word. He doesn't work. He doesn't have a goal. He doesn't have a job. It's all about getting drugs. So I won't do that. And even when I knew I didn't know that he was on drugs as a little kid, I knew he wasn't reliable. So I said, if I give my word, I'll be reliable. But mostly the overview of that is I promised myself, because I saw a lot of kids go off to Vietnam or go off to jail and prison. I'm not romanticizing it. Some of them would get killed, or one kid got crippled because he got thrown off the roof. Another kid got shot by an old man in my building. pounded on his door, wanted drugs or something. So the guy shot him in the stomach and hit his hip and severed his spinal cord, and he was a vegetable the rest of it. So I said, if I get out of here, it's meant to be, and I don't really believe in meant to be, but as a kid, I said, if I get out, I got to do something good with my life. I'm not just going to punch a clock 9 to 5, do something I don't want to do. I'm going to pursue what's in my heart because I'm going to feel like it's borrowed time, like I cheated it, because there are generations in the project that have kids. They have kids and they never leave. So thankfully, my mother had the strength and the will to get us out of there. In 1975, she moved us to Phoenix.
Wow, 1975 in Phoenix. What was that like? I mean, that's like this. Like that is. I mean, when I think of that, I think that is brand new city, brand new buildings, brand new strip malls. Like Phoenix is just kind of, because I was in Tampa at the time, and I think of Tampa in the 70s, and that was like everything was brand new.
Yeah, it was kind of a one-horse town at the time. There may be 600,000 people. Now there's over 10 million, 11, whatever it is. And it's odd because outside of Phoenix proper was desert. And it was like if you go to Scottsdale Road, that was going into the desert. You could get lost. Now that's the middle of it all. Yeah. So the year before we moved here, I came out here for a judo tournament. And I loved it. And my mother said, great, we're moving there. I don't love it that much. I had a good time because it was so different and quiet and clean. So when we moved here the next year, it was great because the apartments we lived was no fancy thing, but compared to the projects, it was the Taj Mahal. And the people were nice. And they would knock on your door and say, hey, you want to throw the football? I mean, there were plenty of kids in the projects to do that. But you never had to worry about motivation. Or maybe you did, but it was just a different vibe. And then right after I moved to Phoenix, they started a TV show called Alice. So this woman moves out from New Jersey with a blonde-headed kid who's around 10 or 11 or 12 years old. And everybody started calling me Tommy, the kid from the show. And they said, oh, yeah, because your mother's like Alice, although she's not a waitress. And it took place in Phoenix, that show. So I got back in touch with my father a little bit because I hadn't moved back yet. So I'm going back and forth in time. He hadn't gone to prison that time yet. And he said, oh, there's this show on. I said, I know all about it. Everybody's telling me, oh, but it reminds me of you, and I miss you, and I miss your mother. I said, you haven't been with my mother in 16 years. What do you mean you miss her? So we got to, I guess, associated with that. So, but it was a great story that a mother and a son move out. And of course, I had my sister as well, who's 3 years younger, but we move out west for a better life. So I try to be a good kid like that kid was on the show to my mother. I never wanted to disappoint her. So instead of that, I disappointed her as an adult and became an actor. I waited, I held it in, and I said, okay, I'm really going to mess with you now. Remember all those times I was good? I'm going to be an actor and really mess with you.
What? So when you moved back to Boston, and then how soon did you move then back to Phoenix after that?
Well, when I was 18, I moved there with my father, like I said, and my grandmother. He went to prison. I came home. So I was there about 11 months. But I met a couple of guys that I became close buddies with. And so when I was 26, I moved back to Boston because I thought I could handle it and all that. Maybe one last crack at my relationship with my father, maybe. And so he's out at that time because he did a short stretch, really. He didn't for that. He got out probably less than a year. But I was gone by then. So I came back. I'm 26, and I try to get to know him a little bit. And another issue with anyway, long story, blah, blah, blah. What was me? And then I was so disappointed. All the years of hurt and frustration. He was in the hospital, and they said, you better go see your father. We don't know. It's touch and go. So I go to see him, and I know he's a drug addict. So that's the first thing I think. He's maybe going there for drugs. And that's what it was. So I go over to his doctor, who's down the road, actually, a couple buildings down. And I say, he's a drug addict. What are you doing giving him drugs? So, oh, well, we didn't know that. He said his heart hurt and blah, blah, blah. Not the best hospital in the world, for sure. So then now I'm mad at him. I'm mad at the doctor. I'm mad at myself that I'm failing, that I can't put this back together, And he's in bed, and it's just, if it was a movie, Bert, it would be the speech. I tell him from all everything he's done and the hurt and the disappointment and everything else that I can't do this. And I tell you what, if you get clean, I know I'll be there for you. I'm not sure about that now, but I'm sure I will be. But you gotta do your part, man. Otherwise, next time I see you, it'll be at your funeral. And I started to get mad. And he said, I don't want to hear it. And so I walked out, and I didn't even see him at his funeral. My aunt called me. His sister called me and said, hey, bad news, your father died. This is 5 years later. I hadn't seen him since. I hadn't talked to him. He never reached out after that. And so I figured for me, he died that day in the hospital, really. So I didn't go to his funeral. For what? Just to make a show, to say goodbye, to lament what could have been? He made a choice. And again, I forgive him for it, although it was terribly sad at the time. Every boy, I'm sure, wants some kind of approval or appreciation from his father. And if he was alive today, he would have got a kick out of seeing what this kid from the projects with no father became. And or not that I did, but I mean, I got out of the projects, and I did what I wanted to do in life, is what I mean. And I didn't become a drug addict or an abuser or anything like that. That you could have, right? I'm, as you said kindly, okay, I hope I'm a good kid. I hope I'm a good person, but you got to keep trying every day.
Wow. So how old was your father when he passed?
Oh, I was 57.
That's so fucking young.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, I thought he was going to overdose someday because of what he was doing. But I guess he was pretty efficient at that. I just think long term, the years of abuse took him. I didn't really get all the details because, again, I didn't want to wallow in that. But he was in the hospital and his heart gave out. But it was from years of abuse. And by the way, I'm 57 right now. So I guess I'm looking both ways a little more often when I cross the street. I want to beat him. I want to at least live to 50. I hope I live to 88. But if I can make it to 58, because there's another thing. Him, his father, the oldest any of them lived was 57. So I'm really trying to set a world record here.
My dad, all the men in my family died of stroke at a young age.
Wow.
And so my dad's dad, my mom's dad, and my dad's dad died when he was 44, I guess, I'm thinking. 44, 43. And when my dad's dad was 44, he passed away. And my dad and I had like a falling out almost to a little bit because he was afraid that my lifestyle was going to catch up to me. And so he got me a cardiologist. Probably the best thing I ever did is get a cardiologist, got on blood pressure medicine. And it's the reason I get on the treadmill at all is because I know what's in my family. I know stroke and heart disease are in my family. So I try to keep it. I try to work out as much as I can, you know. I'm not that great at it, but you know.
Well, I saw you at Fryman putting the time in. Not that that's Mount Everest, but it's great exercise and it's a good constitutional. So good for you for doing that. You're going to inspire me to do more because I don't do enough treadmill stuff. To answer your question from before, I walked the neighborhood with 10-pound weights. And the only reason I did that was to gauge what chemo was doing to me. I had to stop 3 or 4 times this particular route. And then it was 2 times, then once. And now I can do it without stopping because now I know that, that's my progress. So good for you for doing them. I still can't believe you run 10 miles. That's awesome.
Is your mom still alive?
Yeah, she is, thankfully.
In Arizona?
Yeah.
So tell me, how did she turn her life around? Like, how did she, what was her path?
Oh, to me, it's an inspiring story. I'm sure everybody has their own in their family. But so here she is, 21, pregnant with a guy she probably shouldn't be with, but she gets married to him. And then 13 years later, she says, I got to get this kid out of the projects. I got to get my daughter out. So she had come out to Phoenix 2 years before we moved because she was working for a travel agency and she won a contest and they sent her to Phoenix. And then 1 year before we moved, I came out for this judo tournament. And so we had both been here and she said, what would you think about moving there? And of course, when you're 12, 13, it's all about your friends, right? It's all about where you go to play street hockey. It's all about where you go to get your favorite ice cream or a girl you got a crush on. You don't want to leave any of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't know that I want to do that. And she said, well, I think we have to. So I said, okay, we have to. And so she had an old Camaro because her brother, my uncle, worked in a body shop. So he got a car that was totaled and put it back together in a Frankenstein kind of way and just spray painted it. She threw a U-Haul on the back with the tennis ball thing, and we drove. She couldn't back it up or anything. We drove it cross country. Her and her friend who wanted to, whatever, I don't know. She her friend was she's an odd bird, right? She never got married, never talked about guys, never talked about girls, never talked about anything. She was just so strange. I always wondered why my mother is friends with this person. And I understood, because my mother has such a heart and such compassion. She didn't judge her for any of that. There must have been some quality that she saw in her that made them friends. So they're in the front seat. I'm in the back seat reading my comic books with my sister, no air conditioning. And this is the very beginning of September, before school started. We drive out to Phoenix, and she just starts working jobs and gets laid off from one and another one. She's upset. She's crying because she can't put it together. She decides to work, I think, 3 jobs, pool her money, put herself through computer school, all while I was out playing basketball or running around doing it. I didn't quite understand it at the time. And then I saw that she got a really good job for the first time in her life. I mean, like a really good, other than what I mean is something you had to be trained for, really trained. And I said, oh, she was taking those classes. She went to work for Arthur Anderson, one of the big 8 accounting firms at the time. They shut down with the Enron scandal, but she had retired by then, at least from there. And she got a good job, and we were okay. And I thought, wow, from a young girl in the projects, pregnant, and then no one helping her, she really did it all herself. And the whole time was a good person. Never saw her be mean to anyone. Same with my grandmother. They're saints on her. I mean, now everybody says it about their mom, maybe their grandmother. But without them, I think that's the guy. I don't know if I really thought of it that way, but I think their behavior, I think, guides me, because I feel I would dishonor them. My grandmother is gone now. My mother's still around. I think I would dishonor them if I did knuckleheaded stuff, because they tried so hard to make sure that I'd be okay.
It's interesting. I did a radio interview this morning, and they were talking about, like, when did I start partying? And I was like, well, when I came back from Russia. And they're like, how much did you drink in college? And I go, not a lot. My first 2 years, because I wasn't 21. I was 18, 19. My first 3 years, I wasn't 21, so I didn't really, like, drink. And they said, what do you mean you didn't really drink? And I said, I was so raised not to break the law that it was ingrained in my head, do not break the law, because my dad was a lawyer. And so never drank and drove. Never, I mean, like legit never did it, because I'm sure I did it a couple times, but I never did it because my dad would say, you get pulled over drunk, they're going to take you to jail. And he would just kind of break it down of what happens from that point on, and never had a fake ID. I was never comfortable holding a beer when I was underage, because I was waiting for an undercover cop to come up to me at a party, be like, hey man, you 21? And then, because that just happened in Tallahassee, that would happen. And I never really drank, but it's weird. I wonder if I've instilled these same values into my daughters, because they see me as someone who doesn't really follow the rules, although I'm a real weird rule follower. Like, they see me as someone who does his own thing. Like, when I was at Travel Channel, they didn't think I had a job. They thought I would just go on vacations.
Sure. Bert the Conqueror.
Yeah, they're like, you just ride roller coasters. That's not a real job, Dad.
Or that one. Or the 80 days of trip flip. All of it, sure.
And so it's interesting you say that, because I feel like I was so guided by like a weird, strict value system. And I fucked up. I did a bunch. I smoked pot. Did you ever like smoke pot, like, growing up at all?
No, I didn't. I'll tell you why. Because when again, back in the D Street projects, there was a lot of drug use. They were, and spraying, they were huffing spray paint. You spray it into a lunch bag. I saw little kids on drugs, the teenagers on drugs, and I saw what happened. It wasn't the glorified, like when I was in the 80s and going to high school, it was like, oh, hey, let's do a couple lines. It was a different, I didn't do it then either, but it was a different vibe. But I saw what drugs did to kids. And so I was scared not to, because I saw the probably more real side of what drugs can do. And then I made that promise to my mother. So to this day, the first time I had cannabis was on Booze Traveler in Nepal with Babas. We squished it up and made bhang lassi, and I drank it then. And then, of course, doing the high road, tried different things medicinally for my cancer and neuropathy and things like that. But yeah, I was way behind the curve. You would think a kid from the projects would have done everything. But again, my vow to my mother and grandmother was so important to me. So I did other things. I've been known to have a couple of cocktails now and then. But as far as really stretching it and doing other things, I never really did. I never even smoked a cigarette, to be honest.
So wait, when you moved out to Arizona, did you have any insecurities of like your accent or
oh yeah,
different than those kids?
Absolutely. And of course, you know, Phoenix at the time, not a lot of people were moving in. Like I said, 600,000. It grew from there, of course. Again, this is September 1975. And so they would make fun of, because there were a couple of kids from back east, but not too many. That was a long way to go in 1975. Yes. So, yeah, it was, you talk funny. I said, I talk funny. You talk funny. You say car. What's a car? It's a car. The car's right there. What are you talking about? And they say, what? Say that again. I said, the car's right there. What are you talking about? And they're like, it's a car, dude. And I'm like, yeah. All right. So how long before we're going to get over this? Because, and again, some people wanted to pick on me because of that. Some girls thought it was cool. So it's kind of a weird trade-off, you know? Like, oh, that new boy has such an accent. And then as I put it on stronger, hey, how you doing? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm from Boston. You over here? Whatever I could do, being the new kid, you got to fit in.
How cool is it though? Then when Boston became like when Boston became cool as shit, like with Ben Affleck and those guys. I mean, all the comics, all my friends are from Boston practically. Gary Goldman, Dane Cook, Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, Patrice O'Neal, rest his soul. Like all Bobby Kelly. There's so many comics from Boston that I feel that, and I started at a comedy club called the Boston Comedy Club by this guy Barry Katz,
sure,
who's from Boston, and then all of a sudden I remember having this big influence of Boston in my life, and then Good Will Hunting came out, and everything was Boston. Everything, like all of a sudden, all the stories about Whitey Bulger, and like it was like so Boston. Must have been a cool time to like be the guy that everyone was pretending to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. No, it was really nice that people got to know my neighborhood and my city. And, you know, I can't take credit for that. I left when I was 13. Then I moved back there for a short while. Like I said, then I moved back again. But, I mean, there are people who never left South Boston. I mean, those are the real Boston kids. But I love when people from Boston are successful, especially from South Boston, because it's real difficult from those circumstances. You don't get a lot of help, in other words, right? A lot of us are poor and broken homes and all that. And that's okay. I just mean I root for people. I root for everybody. But people from Boston, it was great. Now, I grew up in a different era because I'm a lot older than you. But we had Steve Sweeney and Dennis Leary and Lenny Clark, things like that. So Don Gavin. So I grew up watching those guys. And I'm like, oh, wow, they're so fun and funny. It's cool. And they're from Boston. Good for them. But I know you got a lot of Boston peeps because I listen to and watch your podcast, and you're always having great people on there. Yeah, I love that. It's great, really, when anyone succeeds. But you got to admit, when someone from the neighborhood does, even if I don't know them, I really never really met those people. I met Dan Cook once, and he was really nice. He was actually born in Framingham. I was born in that hospital. We were born in the same hospital, different times because he's a youngster. But yeah, I think that's great. And of course, then Boston gets overdone. And everybody gets mad at me. What's with all the Boston movies? What? I don't make them. I'm not even in them. What are you talking about? It's not my fault. It's not like I'm saying let's just do Boston movies. I got to play a tiny little part in Mystic River. I was the helicopter pilot. You don't see me. You just hear my voice. And I wasn't in the helicopter. It was just I did it in post-production. And it was fun because, you know, to have that one connection. But it's not like I'm in every Boston movie. I'm not in any of them. So it's not my fault. And yeah, maybe it's a little overdone, but so what? It's my time.
You know, guys, every morning when I wake up, within the first 3 minutes of waking up, I like to brush my teeth and wash my hands. Oral care is so important to me. The things I drink the night before, I don't want them in my teeth. I brush them right before I go to bed. and right when I wake up. Just kidding. Only fucking lunatics do that, like Tom Segura. If a regular person likes to eat breakfast and then brush their teeth. My point is, oral care is important. And I love my Quip toothbrush. Today I saw it on my mirror. I didn't bring it with me on the road. I saw it on my mirror in my bathroom, and I'm like, God damn it, I forgot my Quip. This whole trip I had to use some bullshit, tarred, bristled toothbrush that I got at a Walmart. 75% of people use old, worn-out bristles that are ineffective. They don't even floss. I floss 6 times a day. How many times do you think I floss today?
Probably 6.
Yeah. Good health starts with good habits. Quip makes it easy by delivering all the oral care essentials you need to brush, floss, everything. And the Quip toothbrush is fantastic. It's got timed sonic vibrations with 30-second pulses so you can brush your teeth for the dentist recommended 2-minute routine. And they've even got a sized down version designed for kids paired with their anti-cavity toothpaste, which, by the way, is the only toothpaste I'll use. Quip also has an eco-friendly refillable floss with a dispenser you keep for life, an expanding string that just helps keep it clean in between. Quip's brush head, toothpaste, and floss refills are automatically delivered on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5 each, a friendly reminder when it's time for you to refresh and stay committed to your oral health, and shipping is free. Join the over 3 million happy customers that practice good oral care easily and affordable with Quip, starting at just $25. And if you go to getquip.com/Bertcast right now, you'll get your first refill for free. That is your first refill for free at getquip.com/Bertcast. That's GETQUIP.com/Bertcast. Quip, the good habit company. Policy Genius. I love Policy Genius. Do you know why I love Policy Genius, Alston?
What about me?
Leanne? Oh, my bad.
Well, I want to throw to you, Leanne. So then you just sit. I'm going to go in the house.
Shopping for life insurance do not leave yet. Can raise a lot of questions. How much coverage do you need? Which insurance company is the best one for you? How much is it going to cost? And at a time when it's more important than ever to have life insurance, the pandemic is making it a little more complicated to shop for it. That's where Policy Genius can help. A life insurance marketplace backed by teams of experts. Policy Genius is keeping track of all the changes in the market so you don't have to. For people like me who listen to this podcast, that shit overwhelms you. Well, they're going to find the right amount of coverage at the best possible price without the headache. Policy Genius compares quotes from the top life insurance companies in one place. It takes just a few minutes to compare quotes from the top insurers to find your best price. This doesn't just save a lot of legwork. You could save $1,500 or more a year by using Policy Genius to compare life insurance policies. And once you apply, the Policy Genius team will handle all the paperwork, red tape for free. So if you hit any speed bumps during the application process, they're going to take care of everything for you. So if you need life insurance, but if you're not sure where to start, head to policygenius.com. Policy Genius will find you the best rates and handle the process completely. They'll get you and your family protected and hopefully give you one less thing to worry about. Try it today. I think it's cool. When did you decide you wanted to be an actor? Like, tell me the journey. Like, it's so funny. I feel like, because we were at I haven't even mentioned this. I'll have to mention this in the intro, but because we were under the same umbrella at Travel Channel at the same time, and I said Ross, I should have cleared up who I was talking about. The guy you're working with right now, Ross Babbitt, has a production company based out of D.C. or Maryland. And
actually, now it's Kentucky, and he works for Wrigley Media. The Wrigley's from Chicago.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
And Ross is maybe, I would say, in my experience in Hollywood, I got a top 10 list of people that are just, I'd be friends with if they weren't in the business. Just a great Ross Babbitt is one of the greatest dudes I've ever worked for in my life, without a fucking doubt.
Yeah, he's a big fan of yours, and he was the first person to look at the pilot of Booze Traveler. As you know, Travel Channel had nothing to do with that. They were just two women who were friends and shot this very shaky pilot, but he saw it and saw something there and said, we could do something with this. So I'll forever be grateful to Ross Babbitt for that.
Wait, tell me I want to know about I didn't know that about Booze Traveler. Tell me what happened. How did Booze Traveler come about? Hold on. Hang on. I moved the phone in this. Oh, Dr.
Oh, go ahead. Take it. I got time. Go ahead.
Hang on a second.
I'm
Hello. Hello. She is not here. Can you try her on her cell phone? Yep. Thank you. Sorry. I moved my phone in here so I could do radio this morning. So tell me about, how did Booze Traveler come about?
Well, I just went on an audition, really. And like I said, these two women who were new to the business in some sense. I don't think either of them had a show that they had sold to a network, but they had this grand plan that they would do a show going around the world and having drinks. And of course, it had been done before. Zane Lamprey had done it, of course. The Thirsty Traveler, even Bourdain, rest his soul, incorporated a lot of drinking. So it's not like it was a new idea. But I was not familiar with any of those at the time. I didn't watch Travel Channel. I didn't watch any reality-based thing. For me, it was all ESPN and Animal Planet. I mean, with the news once in a while. I love sports, and I love seeing the raw nature, just how it, not scripted. And I was not a reality show guy at all. I'm still not really. So I wasn't familiar with any of it, although everyone had heard about Anthony Bourdain, of course. So I go in this audition, and they won't even tell you what it is. I had to sign an NDA, and they don't say it's a drinking show. And they said, by the way, this is someone else's job already. We're just killing time till he comes in from Dallas tomorrow. And so we're having auditions in case we do something down the road or something like that. And so I said, okay, well, that releases a lot of pressure. I'm not going to get it. Usually it's about 10 minutes in before I realize I'm not going to get something. Not right away. So I said, okay, great. And they started talking about, would you do this? Would you do that? And so I got that it was a travel show. Have you been here? Have you been there? How many countries? How many continents? And then they said, would you ever eat Rocky Mountain oysters? And we all know those are bull's testicles, of course. And you never say no at an audition. You know that. Just like in an improv, it's yes and. You don't say no, right?
Yeah.
So I said, sure, of course. And they said, well, okay, would you drink them in vodka? I just said I'd eat them. I thought the questions got harder. What do you mean? Well, I'd drink anything in vodka. Rusty pennies, broken rocks, magnets. What do you mean? That's easy. They said, okay, great. What would you call that? I said, that sounds like a highball. And they said, oh, wait a minute. Is that how you would approach this show if you got it? Fun? I said, I don't know. I mean, you still not tell me what it is. Sounds like it's something to do with drinking. And I think a guy going around the world drinking probably have a couple of laughs, right? They said, oh, well, we were looking for a more serious thing, like Anthony Bourdain. And I said, that's great. Anthony's great at what he does. But, and again, I had heard of him and people had talked about it, so I was familiar with the show, even though I had not seen an episode. I said, from what I understand, I could never do it. I mean, he's an author and a chef and world traveler. I could never do that kind of show. And he wouldn't want to do it my way, I don't think. So I guess that's how I do it. And they said, okay, great. Well, it is kind of a drinking show. We're going to bring you back tomorrow, callbacks. So I came back and they kept narrowing it down. And this was hours and hours and hours. And I finally, they can't figure out who they want to give it to. So they do the old left turn thing real quick. They say, tell us about a sport that you love or something like that. So yeah, well, I love street hockey when I was a kid. And all of a sudden, boom, tell us a dirty joke. It better be dirty in front of you. You have 2 seconds to start. Otherwise you leave. Go. And I'm like, what? And then I just went into a joke because they were throwing people out if you couldn't think quick on your feet or something like that. So I told the dirtiest, filthiest, funniest joke I could think of, and they liked it. And then later that day, they offered it to me. I came back into the room and I said, I can't do it. What? What do you mean you can't do it? After 2 days of auditions and cover, what do you mean you can't do it? I said, I'm doing a film and I'm committed to it. And you guys have to leave the country by this date. And I have a couple more days left on the movie. You can't do that. You have to be available. I said, I know. And usually I wouldn't, but I go on auditions all the time. I never get the job. I just came to practice. So they kindly, after calling me every name in the book, moved, instead of going to India, we went to Nepal and a couple other places, but they moved the schedule around. And we went off and did the pilot for what became Booze Traveler. It was called something else at the time. And they said, by the way, we don't really love the name. Can you come up with something? So I ran it by, my mother and I were bouncing things off over a glass of wine because she's very creative. She wanted to call it Jack on the Rocks. I said, that sounds like I'm down and out, but it's not a fun show. So I came up with Booze Traveler, and they liked it and submitted it to the network, and the network went with it, really. And so there you go. So, but it took a year before they got it to Travel Channel, and Travel Channel, they sent it out through their agency, and nobody bid on it. And then finally they got it to Ross at Real Screen, which, if you don't know what Real Screen is a place where you meet producers and network heads and you pitch shows and you learn how to write scripts and all this other stuff, I guess. And the industry goes there, basically. And one of the creators just put a laptop in front of Ross and said, look at this. And he did. And he said, well, that's not how it works, but okay, I'll look at it. And he liked it. And then in the meeting at Travel Channel, he pitched it to everyone and said, I like this. Do you? And they said yes. And he kind of bet his career on it at the time, or at least his credibility, if nothing else. And so from the time we filmed it till the time they picked it up was just over a year. And then we ended up doing 4 seasons. It was great.
Was Lorene at the network when you got there?
I think just at the very beginning, before they really lit it up. But then Shannon O'Neill took over, and he loved it. So that's why we started doing it.
He was our president for a second.
Yeah, he was a champion of the show and a nice guy. And I still, tag him every once in a while, online or we text, because, I remember the people who were really supportive. And I don't just mean the people who can do something for you. I mean the people who believe in you before maybe even you believe in yourself. And they give you an opportunity to show what you can do. And then from there, it gets the ball rolling. I did this play, the play that made me an actor. I did a play called Orphans, and I loved it so much because I really related to it. It was a street smart, although struggling kid, and it was hard, and the things he had to go through. But one of the lines from the play is, you just need a little encouragement, Treat. And every time I heard it in the play, I just thought of my real life and how much that would have meant a difference to me. So that has stayed with me forever, that line. And I ended up being at the Actors Studio where I study acting to this day, and the author was standing in front of me, and I realized he was the author. And he turned around and I said, Lyle Kessler, your play made me an actor. And I'd gone on to work with him with some other couple of things, but it's just funny how it all comes around. But for the people who believed in me, just like with you, I mean, they were crazy enough to say, okay, yes to this show, no to this show, and they let you go, which I'm sure they regret to this day. But, you just keep on and you say, okay, I believe in myself now. I know I can do it. So you just keep doing it.
It's interesting. I'm working on this. I'm working on this book, and I have the way I look at the world is a little skewed. And I
unique.
think unique. Yeah. I have to on the world. But one of the things I was talking about, I was kind of talking out with my wife, was how in life I would not necessarily look at the people that were succeeding and see what they did to succeed, because I think that's such a sliding scale of why people succeed, and that no one will ever acknowledge. No one will ever acknowledge the real things that made them successful. I'm trying to be like, I love Kevin Hart. So I can't really use him as an example, but he's someone that always attributes his success to his hard work, his work ethic. But there's things that that affected him that you can't have affect you, because that's his life. That is why he's famous. The fact that he grew up with a dad who was a drug addict and a single mom, like those certain things like that are things in people's lives that, like, the fact that your dad was a drug addict is why you said, I won't ever do drugs. Well, you can't. You also need that in your life to be successful. It's part of the tapestry that makes up the man. The things that you can't control, sometimes you can't add them into your life. Like, there's no way I can go, well, I need my dad to be a drug addict, so I don't use drugs or something like that. So what I always did I've always done this, is I've looked at the failures of men as just simply a navigation of what to avoid. God damn it. Give me a second. Hello. God damn it. So, but I looked at people's failures. So like if I worked with a guy who was successful, I would find out the things they did that I didn't like. And then I would highlight those in my head. There's a song by Perfect Circle called Judith. And this line hit me so hard. I think it's you're such an inspiration for a way that I never want to be. And so like I kind of would tag onto that. And so one of the things I was thinking the other day was I was like, I'm really grateful for all the people that at times I thought did me wrong, or I thought didn't get me or didn't like me, that kind of closed doors for me, because all those closed doors got me to here. Now I don't know what open doors would in my youth would have looked like. Like Last Comic Standing. I remember I didn't get Last Comic Standing 2. I remember we were about to have Georgia, and I got this little duck for her. She was about to be born, and there was this little duck by the gift store in this hotel in New York. And I couldn't get past the fact that I was going to be a father and I was a failure, that I had just gotten kicked off a reality show. And Jim Norton said to me, he came up behind me and he said, "Hey man, sorry about not getting through to the next round, but hey, it's a journey," or something like that. Or he said something to the fact of it's a journey, and you're going to be grateful that. I remember him saying you're going to be grateful that this didn't happen for you. And I was like, how the fuck can I ever be grateful for not succeeding? Now I look back and I go, okay, had I gotten on Last Comic Standing, I would have been famous. I would have been very famous. Everyone was famous. And I had only been doing stand-up for like 4 years. And I would never be ready to be writing material and turning over material and doing my act. And I would have failed. I would have failed. And I'd be always trying to come back from that failure. So I'm glad of that. So I was thinking about, I probably shouldn't say her name, but Halston, be about her name. But she was the president when I got let go of Travel Channel. And had she not fired me, I would never have been at that exact same place I was right after Last Comic Standing, sitting right behind that desk with my hands in my like this. I was in this chair, in this position, going like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, I had a family. We were redoing our house. I had put my stand-up career kind of on hold to really put all my eggs in the Travel Channel basket. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, how do I get out of this? And I remember thinking, I remember feeling like I just was like kicked out of a family. It was so hard. But if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have built up the things I needed to succeed, and I wouldn't be where I am today. And so, like, in a weird way, I was thinking, I'm so grateful that she didn't get my personality, and that she just was like, I don't understand why you'd be on Travel Channel. But by the way, makes total fucking sense. I'm overweight. I ride roller coasters. I'm an alcoholic. Like, all these things are like, who the fuck is this guy? Why am I having to deal with this shit show?
Well, the same person let me go as well for other reasons, same reason. I don't know, maybe because they were going more to the paranormal, but I feel the same way because I was going through chemo, and maybe I would have rushed back too soon, or I would have pulled the needle out of my arm just to go do another episode, and I wouldn't be where I am now. But earlier when you were saying about that, about you never know, someone's failures or hardships make them into a certain kind of person. Voltaire has one of my favorite sayings, and it certainly applies to me, and I'm sure to you too in some way. But he said, the greatest gift you can give an artist is an unhappy childhood. And I didn't get that when I heard it at first because I was too young. But then when I heard it again as an adult, I realized that we use all of that to look at life a certain way. And if I had been born with a silver spoon in my mouth and had everything easy, I know I wouldn't appreciate it. And it sounds cliche, I know, but if all of that didn't happen, maybe I would have turned to drugs if my father wasn't a drug addict. Maybe I wouldn't have worked so hard to try to be a success or a good person if I didn't have both his bad influence and my mother and grandmother's good influence. So I give it to that, the good and the bad. Such a good way to look at it, Bert. You're right. When you look at both sides, the dark and the light, that's who you are, the yin and the yang.
You can't tell, Kevin Hart can't tell someone, listen, you need to be undersized and living in a bad neighborhood where you're fearful for your life, and that's how you're going to develop a personality, is that you need to be defending yourself. That when you get down to school, people are going to start busting your balls because they think you can, and you need to be able to come back, and you need to use comedy as a defense. Like those things, he could say them in an Instagram speech, but those are so important to the development of him and his success.
Sure.
Like The Rock. Now, I'm a big fan of the fucking Rock, but The Rock needs to do an Instagram post where he's like, number one, you got to be obsessed with an occupation where you feel like your dad was disrespected and disregarded because he was an African American in a time where wrestling was predominantly a Southern male. Like that, you need to add those things in, because that driving motivator pushes The Rock to be the guy he is today. So like,
that's right.
I could never look at someone's successes and go, oh, okay. I'm trying to use, I had exact examples, but I can't use them because people would know who the person is, and it's unfair to share the things. But what I could definitely do is look at where he fucked up and go, okay, stay away from that. Like that was a real clear roadmap for me growing up.
Sure. With The Rock, I read his book years ago, and he played for the University of Miami Hurricanes football team, and he got injured and he didn't have the career that he wanted to. So that was a driving force too, because the trainer kept busting his chops about, is that all you got for me? You're not working hard enough. And he said, hard, I'll show you hard work. And he became, of course, in wrestling, one of the hardest workers there was, and certainly one of the most successful. But right, it stems from how his father and grandfather were treated, and he wanted to, extend their legacies, perhaps. Yeah, and that's why
I feel like his grandfather and father weren't given. There was no, at the time, there was no value in, not value, but like in the wrestling world, it was the blonde hair, blue eye, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. That was what was popping. And when and Dusty Rhodes and so I think it's so interesting that there was no appreciation paid to the Hawaiian culture or Black culture in that time. But now you look at it and it's like Hawaiian culture. I think everyone realizes that, oh, fuck yeah, Hawaiians are badasses. Like, but that's because of now. It's the same way as Southie is.
They sure are. Those Islanders, man, they're tough. Eddie would go. Remember that? That story.
Yeah,
all of it. They are badasses for sure.
It's crazy. I'm texting with my daughter.
Georgia, the one you were just talking about.
Yeah.
How sweet. Does she still have the duck?
Yeah, she does.
That's great. See, look at the success you've become because you measure it. But you're a wonderful father and a family man and a husband. That's true success, and that's what you focused on, whether you got gigs or not, man. So I think you were always a success, honestly.
Oh, I've my life. It's the thing is like I have a hard time giving advice to people because my life is so not make sense on paper, and so like. I couldn't tell you how to. I couldn't tell anyone.
You wouldn't follow that roadmap. For sure. It's funny. We have another connection that you don't even know about. I did a short film when I first got to LA and wanted to be an actor. And the writers, not because of this short film necessarily, they went on and that's the last time I heard from them. They said, we're writing on this other film. And I said, oh, great. What is it? National Lampoon's Van Wilder. It's the true story of this crazy guy. And it's featuring Ryan Reynolds, who's not so well known. Then I find out that's you. I said, who is this Bert Kreischer? What? He's really a wild, crazy. He's like like John Belushi was in Animal House and all of that. Then years later, I get to Travel Channel. I'm like, wow, I'm starstruck. This is the guy. And I don't know if a lot of people know that or whether you even want to talk about it, but I always, from that moment, I always remembered who you were and your name and all of that. And what a journey. That's why I said you wouldn't necessarily lay that out as a roadmap. Right. Do as I do. Do as I do.
How could I tell someone, hey, guys, go to college for 7 years. Don't do anything with your life. And then just put all your eggs in the basket that Rolling Stone magazine is going to discover you. That's just hope for that. And then hope that the biggest movie star in the world, his first big role is like, that's fucking, it's so hard to emulate someone's success that I find it almost irresponsible to write a self-help book because you're like, everything's so fucked up. Yeah, you might be doing all the right things. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching this thing on Bruce Lee last night. You have a fucking aneurysm. Like what? Like it's crazy about. I want to talk about your new show. I want to pivot and talk about your new show, but I'm dying to know, like, give people like a soft sell of how much fun it was to shoot Booze Traveler, because you had everyone's dream job.
Yeah, a lot of people would say that. They say, I want your job. I said, I'm still doing it. You want to kill me and take it? It was really because I'd not come from the hosting world. I had hosted something way years before that, but my dream was to be an actor. And so I did a couple of guest stars on a couple of shows you might know, and this, and then I got to do this play with Al Pacino. And I thought, wow, this is it. If I do nothing else, to be on stage with maybe our greatest living actor and Jessica Chastain. It was just unbelievable. Just the experience was so fulfilling that I didn't really have an inkling to do hosting. And then it came around and I said, wait a minute. What am I, stupid? They're saying you get to go around the world, have drinks, maybe get paid for it. Probably not much because it's cable television, but you get to, I saw went to maybe 60 countries, 6 continents out of the 7. And that's only because penguins don't make moonshine. We would have gone there if we gave us a reason to. But all the different people and cultures, it's something that I would have paid for after the fact, knowing what I know and how wonderful it was. Now, don't get me wrong. The traveling is hard. It's a grind. And sometimes you just don't feel like doing it because you're jumping across international date lines. You get 1 hour sleep one day, 15 the next. Not too many of those days, by the way. And you always have to be on. And the crews, they would come and go. The cameraman, the sound guys, because it's exhausting. Only an idiot would do every episode.
Yeah.
Who would do that? So, but I knew that it was going to be over sooner than I wanted it to be at some point. So just that experience. And I have always believed, coming from nothing, of course, that we were enhanced more by the experiences we had in life and the people in our life more than we are by material goods. So thankfully, I believe that because now I'm back to being no job again. I remember looking at that going, God damn, that would be the fucking show.
Like that would be like how
you did it. You just didn't. You just got paid for doing a different kind of show.
By the way,
this guy.
I was drinking like we were shooting Booze Traveler, but just doing trip flip.
That's right. No, I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
It was so fun to see because I had gotten there when it was me and Adam Richman, Andrew Zimmern, and Anthony Bourdain were like the 4 hosts. I'm sure, and Zach and those guys from Ghost Adventures, but that was kind of the group. And then you and Don Wildman and Todd Carmichael showed up, and it was like a breath of fresh air. And I remember seeing you guys at Upfronts, and it was like you guys were so untethered. You so didn't give a fuck. And I think Adam and I were at the time where we were so involved with, trying to get our numbers up. And, it was such a like ad sales. I remember going to ad sales, going to those Upfronts and going to Greg Regis and going, so tell me who we can sell. Tell me who we can get to buy episodes of the show. 'Cause my whole thing with Trip Flip is we only did it. I mean, we got greenlit for it, but our goal was to get every episode paid for by sponsors so that we could make it for free. And so I remember that. And then you guys just came in. I remember Todd Carmichael got drunk at one of the Upfronts, and I was like, God damn it. He's drinking? I want to be drinking.
I got lucky. I have to say, I really, it's to me like winning the lottery. A guy that with really no hosting experience to speak of, certainly not in this genre, to be given this show. And so then again, I said to myself, all right, I have to honor those who not only who brought me to this point, but the people like you and the others you named. I have to be good. And I have to, this network is putting a lot of time and money into not only building a brand, but to doing this television show, because at the end of the day, it was a gift. That wasn't work. I would have paid them, of course. Maybe that's why they pay so little. They know we love doing what we're doing, right? But at the same time, boy, what an experience that was. I mean, I would have done that forever. I never would have left and said, now I want to go do movies or I want to do this. That was just great because I love people and learning about these cultures live in person through what's going on. It was amazing.
What's cool, and I think most people don't realize is like you get to steal moments for yourself in those shows. Like I remember we were fishing in a dugout canoe off the coast of Costa Rica before sunrise, and I watched the sunrise come up over a mountain. And we're having cocktails in the boat. It's like 6 a.m. You get to steal moments for your own like memory bank. What memories do you have of where you're like I was drinking up in Nepal with the fucking Sherpa and he was spitting he had to spit it back into the bowl. That's how they made the like. What moments did you get that you got to steal for yourself?
By the way, before I tell you, that's a great point to make, because when you do that and you're truly in the moment, they can sense that. They know this is not produced television, that this guy is really living this moment at the time, and you could see the joy of that experience on his face. So to take those moments, to understand, to not just skip past them, because everyone else on earth, I think, given that opportunity, would really take it in. You got a sunrise off Costa Rica in a boat, dugout canoe, having cocktails. If you don't pause at that moment and say, this is pretty cool, when do you then, right? When would you ever? So for me, there were so many. I remember the one that I'll just never forget because it involves my family. The second season, we started in a place that they actually asked me, where would you like to go?
Dude, that's my favorite. That's my favorite thing. That's the one thing I miss more than anything out of Travel Channel was that phone call. We would get it in January, and they'd be planning out the season, and they go, "Okay, pick 13 places you want to go," and you'd be like, and you had budget either like 4 or internet. For us, it was like 4 are international, 8 are in the States, and so. But it was the greatest fucking phone call in the world.
It was. You're asking me where I want to go on this dream trip of mine? Absolutely. So I chose Sicily because my mother's grandfather left there as a young man and never returned, certainly not to live. And I had all this family there that I never met, but they knew of me through television and what have you. And they heard stories from America, and I mean, really old school, in a little town outside of Palermo called Cimina. So I said, because my mother would talk about it on occasion, and I have cousins in Chicago that would talk about it, and they would go visit. So I said, that's it. But not only that, now that I did one season, now I was saying, I'm gonna bring my mother. I'm gonna bring my mother to say hello again to her DNA, people she's never met, to really connect. And I did that along with my stepfather. I brought them, and to me, to see the joy on my mother's face, meeting her family, to hear stories about her grandfather as a young kid, and everybody's crying constantly because they're so happy. And the mayor issues a proclamation, and the band is playing, and all of that. And I finally felt in a moment that I had turned the tables just for that moment and gave back to my mother just a little bit of what she'd given to me her whole life, not just life itself, but that I had really done something for her in a way that she would never forget. And every bit of that episode, I was thinking about that no matter what I was doing.
Wow, what an amazing experience.
It was.
It stinks that Travel Channel didn't work out as a brand, like that it stinks that. By the way, I love Zach and Aaron, and they're amazing, and I love their shows. But it stinks that Travel, because it was such a great job, Travel Channel, that all of us, look at what Bourdain did, but it was such a great job. It was so fun. I wonder what fucked it up. I wonder what did you think? What did you think towards the end was the reason that Booze Traveler got canceled? Was it just because they were going paranormal?
Well, I can't say for sure. I thought our ratings were good, and it's not just about ratings. Of course, it's also, is it on brand, and can ad sales sell the show, right?
And also, is it like, in a lot of times a new president, like the one we mentioned, wants to come in and put her thumbprint on the network
Sure.
and say, this is what I did. They had no president, and that was the problem I had at the network, was no president wants to inherit a show that is moderately successful. They'll keep around shows like Man vs. Food or Bourdain or Andrew Zimmern, but if you are moderately successful, the president, for the most part, it's like, if we can repurpose this talent, let's do that. But I don't want to just flounder on a show that I don't really give a shit about. And that was what happened to Bert the Conqueror, and that's why they switched me into Trip Flip, and then that's why they switched me back into Bert the Conqueror. I mean, I had so many fucking shows on Travel Channel.
I know.
I had Scream If You Know the Answer. I had a blooper show. It's such a fucking bizarre experience there, because I think people liked me. They wanted me to work there.
Sure, they did.
But no one wanted to we just had so many goddamn presidents at the time. But what do you think was the reason? I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I thankfully I didn't focus on it too much, because I probably would have felt bad about myself, because I was going through chemo, and I wanted to try to save my life first and foremost. The job comes after that, right? But I was told through the person at the network who made the phone call and others that it wasn't a personal thing, that they, as you know, they had sold Scripps, who owned all the networks, Food, HGTV, Travel Channel, DIY, Cooking, and Food, or whatever, maybe. Yeah. They sold to Discovery. So I think that people were scrambling around, worried about their jobs. And like you say, if it's just going to be a moderately successful show, anybody can do that. So that, it's like they want to move things around just to say, look at how we rearranged the chess pieces. Look at us. And I can't blame them. Obviously, they have to do whatever they can to save their jobs. They don't owe me anything. But I believe that it wasn't because of the chemo or anything, because a couple of shows, they canceled Hotel Impossible with Anthony Melchiori and a couple of other things. Because
that was a great fucking show, Hotel Impossible.
Oh, Anthony was great in it, and he's such a good guy.
Anthony's such a goddamn good guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's such a good guy. God damn it, I totally forgot about Hotel Impossible. He was such a solid fucking dude.
Solid. Actually, first person of all the hosts on Travel Channel, first one to call me and say, welcome to the network. And but just a good guy. He didn't do that for any reason other than he's just a good guy. But Samantha Brown was so great. Everything she did.
I love Sam Brown.
I just did an episode of her show, Emmy award-winning show, Places to Love on PBS. She came to Arizona where I was doing treatment, and so I showed her around Phoenix in that episode. It was wonderful. But who knows exactly the calculation that they go through in their mind. But because I wasn't the only show that they pulled, I figured they were just going in a different direction. They were going and I don't mean to make fun of those shows at all. It's great. No. But they wanted to go more ghosty than just the one or two that they had. And now it's, as I'm told by people who reach out on social media all the time, that's all they're doing. It's not even travel anymore. It's TRVL. And that's cool. Look,
no, it's cool because
if that works, but
it does.
It's not my thing.
I think the ratings are through the roof. I think they're doing better than they've ever done. Their ad sales are through the roof. Man, those people good for them. The guy who did Expedition Unknown,
Josh Gates.
Josh Gates was a ghost hunter first.
Was he?
Oh yeah. Like, dude, there's something about ghost hunting that really gets fans to tether to you for the rest of your life. Like Zach is so, and you know what? Here's the other thing I'll say. I should do a podcast with Zach and Aaron maybe, but like they had 100% control over their show. They simply would give their show to them, and Travel Channel would just air it. There were never any notes. No one ever told them what to do. They did their show. I mean, they're so ahead of the curve. They shot their show, edited their show. They had all control of it. And I'm not saying like Zach's team. It was fucking Zach and Aaron. They were in an editing bay going like, here we go, or at least sitting over someone's shoulder. So and their show got ratings. I'm telling you, the ratings their show got were insane. And secret time, and I'm not allowed to share this, but I'll fucking say it anyway. No one ever wanted to get behind that goddamn show because Scripps was a Christian organization, and I think they thought it was like the occult. They're promoting the devil. So like they never had ad sales. They didn't need any of that shit. They had the network bent over backwards because fucking that show got such high fucking ratings. They were king of the roost. I mean, I think the network's doing phenomenal right now. Like legit, way better than it ever did. Height of Bourdain, Man versus Food, Bert the Conqueror, Booze Traveler, Andrew Zimmern, like height of Bizarre Destinations, height of all of that. I think the network's killing it. I know Matt Butler is running. Matt Butler's running the network right now. He's a really good friend of mine. Like I have him out when we do shows. When I do shows in Maryland, I'll have him and his friends and his family out. And I think I shouldn't speak for Matt Butler at all, but like they are killing it. Like everyone's got job security there because and by the way, their shows are fucking good. I shouldn't say that, but I wanted to work with them again because I love Matt Butler. Matt Butler was the first team that brought me in. Matt Butler and Charlie Parsons. That's before Lorene and Fred. That's before Shannon and before all those fucking people.
Wow, they came back around after all that time?
The guy running the network now was the guy that got fired from the network I think he quit. But when Lorene came in, they cleaned house, and I think Matt bounced and went over to Discovery. I shouldn't. I'm speaking way out of school, and so I apologize. I probably got all the facts wrong. So please don't. Like I'm just telling you, us hosts never knew anything.
I still don't know anything. I don't know.
But Matt Butler's a great dude, and I think.
So would you go back? I mean, you'd have to take a big pay cut, and you'd have to work a lot harder. Being away from your family. I suppose you do that now because you're on tour and all.
Here's the deal. I tried to go back. I tried to that's my white whale is that network. I had such insecurity around that network. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like the hot chick in high school that you had a crush on, and now you've graduated college and you run into her and she's like back in your hometown and she maybe never left and you moved to New York and now you see her and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing back in town?" And you're like, "Oh shit." And then you're like, "I wonder if I can fuck her." And then and so I talked to Dan Adler. I talked to Dan Adler and Matt Butler way too much. Like I talked to them constantly about, we tried to do one show at one point, like a big special, and then it just didn't work out on my touring. My touring was kind of blowing up. And then we tried to do another thing very recently, and everything was so it just was so problematic. And then we tried to do a workaround to figure out if we could figure out a way to do the show because it was just so complicated. And obviously it's not necessarily about the money for me. It's more about like, I really believed in that network, and I love that network, and I love the group of people that I worked with. Ross Babbitt was such a great Dale. I worked with Dale, all the people over at High Noon. Like you fall in love. For me, what I did, and this is bizarre when you look back at it, and you'll go, "Are you serious?" I would sign up to do an episode, and then I would force all the cameramen, sound guy, and producers to sign up for the whole season. You could not leave because I didn't want new cameramen. I had a certain group that I like to be around. I like to insulate myself with them. We all drove in one van. We'd rent two vans, and I'd be in a van with the exact same people so I can make all my inappropriate jokes. And it was like having a family, and I miss them wholeheartedly. Like some of the greatest times I ever had in my life were with.
Sounds like a blast. Yeah, I miss it too, Bert. I know exactly what you're saying. There are very few of us that know exactly what that experience is like.
Yeah.
And those were great days for me. I'll always cherish them, and I miss them too.
There's nothing like, no one will understand this except for us, but there's nothing like a long day of shooting. You're on your third setup, and you're at a location, and technically this isn't going to make the show, but you're just doing one more shot just to have yourself covered. We were in New Zealand. We had just gone to Hobbiton, and we were doing a wine tasting. Wine tastings never made the fucking show. They never made the show because it was just like, it's the weirdest thing to have, especially on Triplet with two people that had never been on camera, have them try to explain wines. It was so, like, everyone knows there's a workaround for us about, I feel it's full bodied. I really get the hints of oak. And you, like, there's like cheats that we would do as a host. But if you're if you're not talent on the show and you're just a regular person,
it's good. It's good.
One guy, I remember we were tasting pineapple wines, and he said, and I said, what do you feel? And he dead seriously
said pineapple.
He goes, I'm tasting pineapple. And we're like, yeah. He goes, I'm getting big hints of pineapple. And we're like, it's made from pineapple. And then he goes, and then I said, try not to just tell us what the obvious things you're sensing. Right. Tell us how you feel. And he goes, it's like a carnival of flavor in my mouth. But we were doing a setup in New Zealand. It was one of my favorite, where you're just punch drunk, you're jet lagged, you're tired.
Oh yeah.
Our third setup, the sun setting. We know as soon as this is over, we're done. And we were with the most uptight woman who just honestly was not having it. Didn't like where we initially set it up. She wanted it set up a certain way. This was her vineyard. She wanted it set up on a hill. It just made no fucking sense for us to be drinking wine in a hill. And she had all these food setups. She had planned this on being a much bigger segment than we had promised her, maybe. And so we get there, and she does not like me. And she asked if I could not be in the shot. And I'm the fucking host. She goes, well,
how's that possible?
She goes, I think it's better if I host it. Like if I host it, because I know what I'm saying. You don't know what you're saying. So wow. I'll just be with them. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fucking take me out of it. And our producers were like, no. Bert needs to be in the shot. And so she says, this one pairs well with a fig jelly on a cracker. I think you'll notice the hints. And this one pairs better with a strawberry jam. Like if you taste the difference. And then she said, do you know the difference between jam and jelly? And I said, I actually do. And she said, really? And my whole crew's like, Bert's the most unrefined guy in the world. And I said, you can't jelly your dick in someone's ass. And
she must have died.
Dude, It was done. We wrapped. We walked out, and they were like, that woman will be reaching out to the network and letting them know how unhappy she is.
And scene. Oh, I'm going to guess that didn't make it to air.
It was so worth it just watching. I wish. I'll tell you what I'll do. This is where I'm at right now. I would like to. I wonder if this is even fucking possible.
Anything's possible, Bert.
I do a show with the Travel Channel. What I'd do is I'd take all the footage from all my past shows, and I would edit a show together the way Aaron and Zach do it. I would edit a show, and I would put all those fucking moments where we laughed hysterically as a crew, and just and take out the branding, like the branding of Travel Channel, the family friendly shit. I would just make a badass show of like I guess what I do now. Why am I saying I just do it now? I would just like we're doing this tour on drive-in movie theaters, and I'm filming it. I'm filming it with one of my shooters from Trip Flip and from Birth Conquer. I'm shooting. He's traveling with me. I called one of my producers from Trip Flip and said, hey, can you kind of storyboard this out for us or give us an idea or direction and kind of be our base camp where we can, if we need to access somewhere, we can have you call before we pull in. And so I would just do it myself. And I think that's what's problematic about things now is that you can do everything yourself. I mean, this podcast is just me, I mean, it's more profitable because you're not paying agents and managers than going out, traveling the world and doing a show. But God damn it, that was fucking fun.
It was. So why don't you just get the footage from them and do it yourself and put it together? I think it's a great idea.
I tried that with Boone and Murray. I shot a show with Boone and Murray that is the funniest show I've ever been a part of in my life. It is me, this guy Theo Vaughn, and this guy Brett Ernst. And we started a fraternity. And we did a reality show. And we put it in Craigslist. And we didn't vet anyone. And we got 12 guys in LA. And we took them for a weekend to start a fraternity. And this show was so inappropriate. It was so funny, fucking hilarious that I reached out to Boone and Murray and I said, can I just, because it didn't go anywhere. I was like, can I just buy that footage from you? I would love to buy that footage and then edit my own show.
Sure.
And they said, no, I guess there's no benefit in them. Like it's not enough money. Like you don't have enough money for them to give a fuck about it.
But where is it now? Sitting on the bottom of their toy box with the Stretch Armstrong and a Parcheesi game on it. It's never going to see the light of day.
Yeah, I would love. And that was one of the times I pitched to Travel Channel. I was like, let me own the footage, because I wanted to own the footage, because I know that I know that the stuff we shot sometimes, the stuff that didn't make it, was so much better than the stuff that sometimes got in.
I feel the same way with ours. So what happened? Did Travel Channel say no to as well?
Travel Channel said no.
Wow.
Travel Channel.
You know what? I think both Boone and Murray and Travel Channel are afraid that you're going to make it more successful with what you do, and then people are going to say, "Why couldn't you guys do it? You had the footage, right?"
You know, my friends would say, "Why are you even having this conversation? Just do your own thing now." Like, that's where everyone's head's at. But you know, it's like you have a guy like Ross. You know, Ross is a great example. But to have a guy like Ross in your ear or in your corner, kind of giving you a direction or an angle that he sees, there's value to that. Like, there's value. You know, I think so often, God, this is really inside baseball, but so often a producer is not, you get a producer and they become, especially field producers, are kind of just like following someone else's lead. Like, they're not really have their own mind. And then when you work with real producers, like legit producers, like I'll say Dan Adler, who created Man vs. Food, created Bert the Conqueror. Dan Adler is not only is he a problem solver in the office, but he's a problem solver in the field, and he's a great visionary guy. He's a great, like, sees it for out of the box and then knows how to get it into the box. Or like I'm working with some producers now on movies and on TV shows that are a little higher end than Travel Channel. And one of the producers, we were literally talking on the phone before this started. He's one of those guys that, like, when shit gets confusing, he comes in the room as this, like, spiritual leader to put everyone back on track. And you're like, and like I just said to someone, I would work with him every fucking time, because as soon, like, he sees big visions. Like, you need those people that see the big vision. And so
sure.
I love a great producer is so valuable.
Absolutely.
And great execs like Matt Butler or even, like Shannon, like all the ones we worked with that were like just awesome people, kind individuals. Lorene as well. Lorene was not a huge fan of mine. Like, she definitely didn't like me, I think, at the jump. And I don't know if she ever really liked me, but it's once again, it's one of those things that we were talking about earlier, where you find the things that you didn't like what they did and you let those be your guide. And then the things that and there was lots of positives to Lorene, and you just kind of find those positives. It's crazy. So wait, tell me about your new show.
Sure. And that's a healthy way to look at it, by the way, because the Shannon O'Neills and Ross and Courtney White, the people in Carga 7 who did such a great job, they all made that. I was the face of it, but they all made it go, and they don't get the credit that they should half the time. But you're so right. A really great producer can make the difference. Conversely, a bad producer can really screw it up. And, we went through a couple where people they just didn't get it. They didn't understand. So
but they want it to be theirs. Yeah,
that's right. That's exactly right. So this new thing only came from, like you say, you get hit with something, and the only thing we have control over is the choices. How we feel about it is the only thing, right? So I get cancer, I lose a show, I have to go through chemo, which is that's no day at the beach. Let me tell you, that's not fun, of course. So, but I do it, and I take it in, and I accept it, and I say I'm going to get better, and everything's going to be okay. But I can't sleep at night, so on a recommendation, I start taking CBD, and it works, and it's wonderful. I meet these people who say, "Hey, let's do this show." Long story short, we do a show, and it comes from the perspective of, hey, I really wasn't a cannabis user before, for all these different reasons. So, but this works. I wonder if there are other people out there who had one vision of cannabis at one time and then said, wait, maybe it's not what we were told it is. So because of that, we talked to like older people who would never have used it, people from red states that think it's the ones we talked to thought it was against God's natural law and it was against their religion and the church, and good people didn't use it and things like that. Pets, you would never get a pet high unless you were, goofing around trying to be funny. And not a lot of it has THC, but the CBD aspect of it, I'm learning so much. Obviously it's not international. It's not as eye-opening as Booze Traveler was, but it's really fulfilling because I went through that journey. First the cancer, then the chemo, and then I was helped by it. And we find so many people who are being helped by it and their experience, and how not only did it flip a light on when people came to them and said, I know you don't like marijuana or cannabis or whatever we're calling it, but I tried this and it works. And people are saying, wait a minute, it's not this horrible thing that they said it was. I'm not lazy. I'm not going to just eat Cheetos on the couch, fall asleep. Maybe there's something to this. And so we're changing hearts and minds, hopefully, not advocating for it in any way, but saying at least think for yourself. Open your mind to get educated, because it was prohibited in 1937, thanks to a guy named Harry J. Anslinger, who basically just wanted to prohibit something. Alcohol just came off the list in 33, and they came to him through William Randolph Hearst, who thought hemp was a threat to his paper mills because he owned newspapers. And
he hated Mexicans. William Randolph Hearst hated Mexicans. Every Mexican guy ever always tells me that.
Well, not only that, it was absolutely against Mexicans and people of color, racist. They went into jazz clubs and they were arresting jazz musicians, and Mexicans, they wanted to, they came up with this term, marijuana, because it sounded Mexican and scary. And it was the Marijuana Tax Act, but instead of a J, it was spelled with an H, marijuana. And you're right, it was for racial reasons and economic reasons. And basically they lied to us about what it is. And again, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing in the world, that it's going to cure everything, but at least look at it for what it is, not for what you're told it is. And that goes for anything, religion, politics, any of it. So this is what we're trying to do. And thankfully, we're doing it anyway. But it's not on a network. It's on YouTube. And with their little mini segments, just a few minutes each, but we start with a 30-minute Q&A live. So I do it like you're doing this live, and then we show the show, and then I have an interview right afterwards. So it's about 40, 45 minutes of content every week, and it's on my YouTube channel and Facebook. And that's called The High Road with Jack Maxwell. And then on Sunday, I do a thing, Jack's Place. I just have a drink and talk to people. And I also do a trivia game show called Belly Up, but only on Facebook and my YouTube channel for now, until you and I get shows again on Travel Channel, and we'll laugh about it.
Dude, I'm telling you, how come you're not doing Jack's Place as a podcast?
I'm doing it as a what do you call this? A visual podcast. It's on live every Sunday night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And it's like this, and I take questions live. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's just you and fans?
Yeah.
Oh,
sometimes I have guests. We bring them in and out, depending. And then we had a contest. So this, we started bringing on people that they won the contest, so they'll come on and have a drink with me. So it's really just a mishmash of things, whatever I'm thinking of at the time.
God damn. Dude, this has been an amazing podcast, man. I feel like
because you're an amazing host.
No, I am a fucking. By the way, wait do you see the notes in the comments? Are like, Jack, it was a good episode, but it was only a good episode because he shut the fuck up for the first 45 minutes until he wanted to talk about fucking himself. I think they're good podcasts when I'm fascinated by people, and you're one of those guys that I've been a fan of the whole time we were on the network, and then I heard what you were going through, and then running into you and seeing how good you looked. I was like, God damn it, man! It's always good. I think it's so important to hear those hero stories, about guys who get through dark places and get to the next place and still fight. And because so many people get diagnosed with cancer and just go, oh, fuck, that your story is important,
Thank you. And I feel the same way. You were always the one who led the way. And I could never try to be you. But a lot of people followed your example and maybe even ripped you off a little. But I'm so happy that you're doing well. I know what you're saying about it's your white whale and your Ahab and it's Moby Dick. And maybe one day you'll grab it by the tail and pull it onto your boat. But you're doing really well. I mean, you got a beautiful family and you're really successful. You have all these great specials and your live stand-up. So you're not missing anything. Congratulations to you, my man.
Dude, congratulations to you. What's the name of the show one more time? I'm going to type it in my browser and watch it tonight with a box of wine on my treadmill.
It's called The High Road with Jack Maxwell. And it's always on YouTube, my YouTube channel and Facebook, but we do it live Friday nights, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific.
The High Road. I hope everyone goes and checks it out. I hope please tell Ross that I miss him and I follow his son's journey. It's exciting watching his son succeed in this business.
I will, my man. Thank you.
Let me see if I got it on. Where the fuck is it? My bad. I went into, give me 1 second. I want to pull it up so I got it in my thing. And then I'm definitely watching it tonight, man. And I would love, we're going to be in Arizona in Phoenix. Where are you in right now? Are you in Phoenix?
Yeah, Scottsdale, right next door.
We're in Phoenix. All right. I'm pulling it up. All right. I got you.
Doesn't matter when, I'm there.
Right now we got 385 subscribers. I say, everyone do me a favor, go over, click the subscribe button and start following. I know a lot of people smoke weed that listen to this podcast. A lot of you. I think this is going to be a fascinating podcast for a lot of you, a fascinating show. So go on, click subscribe on YouTube, give them a comment, tell them that I smell like shit or I fuck dogs, whatever you want to tell them on the comments.
Don't say that. It's not true.
We're in Phoenix. June 19th. I haven't announced it yet, but I'm doing stand-up live. I'm doing 2 shows. So if you got it, I would love to have you at the show.
I'll be there. I'll reach out and I'll make sure I see you. Can we grab a drink afterwards?
100%.
Unless you're busy. I know you got a lot of fans.
No. It's half capacity shows right now because of the COVID.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
it's going to be and I'm not going to really like socialize much with the fans. I'm just kind of go in. It'll be my first time on stage in 90 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't wait. I got a joke lined up. I'm super fucking excited. So text me, shoot me a text. I think I got you in here. I'll shoot you a text and let you know, and I'll give you the info, and then I'll hook you up with my tour manager so you can come in when we can have a drink after the show.
That'd be great, Bert.
Bro, I miss you. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I'm glad.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that.
Of course, brother. Thank you so much for doing this, and I'll be watching your show tonight.
Great. I'll see you soon.
I'll see you in a couple weeks, Jack.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Bye.